Number 8. Keenan Harpole. 19-year-old music student Amara Maluk was shot near the campus of Portland State University in April of 2022. The woman was found at roughly the halfway point between her workplace and student accommodations in the early hours of April the 4th. She later succumbed to her injuries in a local hospital. At some point during her freshman year, Maluk had met Keenan Harpole, a running back on PSU's football team, who lived on the same floor at the University Point student apartments. Harpole, who was reported as Maluk's first boyfriend by her mother, was described as abusive and manipulative in the relationship. He had allegedly struck Maluk during an argument earlier in 2022, but she didn't report him to the police and ultimately decided to grant him a second chance. She'd done so against the wishes of her friends and family, who'd reportedly seen warning signs and wanted her to end the relationship. 20-year-old Harpole was arrested on property owned by his family outside of Bend and charged with second-degree murder as well as unlawful use of a weapon. Maluk's killing was described as a domestic violence incident, but a clear motive wasn't released in the immediate aftermath. As per the latest updates on the case, Harpole had pleaded not guilty to the charges levied against him. Number 7. Marvin Ward and Alexis Morris. During his first year at the School of Oriental and African Studies University, 18-year-old Hussein Chowdhury started a part-time business selling designer coats and jackets, which he advertised on social media. On March the 17th of 2021, a meeting was arranged in East London with two teenagers who'd expressed interest in his products. Marvin Ward and Alexis Morris, both aged 18, walked with Chowdhury back to his home in Walthamstow after claiming that they wanted to try on different sizes. Once they were at the address, the duo brandished bladed weapons, including a machete, threatening Chowdhury as they began ransacking the home looking for coats to steal. The student's mother and older brothers, who were home at the time, reacted to the commotion. Morris was overpowered in an upstairs bedroom but eventually managed to escape out of a window. Before doing so, however, he dropped his phone inside the house. It would later be found to contain video footage of him and Ward playing with the machete leading up to the robbery. Ward also fled the house after stealing a Tommy Hilfiger jacket and got into the back of an Uber he and his accomplice had previously ordered, but the driver refused to drive off. One of Chowdhury's brothers followed him, smashed the vehicle's window, and managed to retrieve the jacket. In the meantime, the teenage student's mother also came out of the house. Ward emerged from the vehicle and began swinging his knife. Chowdhury's mother sustained a slash to her hand, which resulted in severed tendons in her fingers, while the brother was also cut in the hand after attempting to grab the blade. Before fleeing the scene, Ward plunged a knife deep into Chowdhury's neck. Paramedics arrived at the address and performed emergency surgery on him in the street. The blade had entered over 4 inches into the teen's chest cavity, collapsing his lung. He died in front of his mother on the pavement outside his house. Ward and Morris were later arrested and ultimately jailed for 20 years each after they were convicted of manslaughter, robbery, and assault. Number 6. Corey Anderson. 18-year-old Floridian Corey Anderson was arrested in late May of 2022 after Tampa police received reports that he'd threatened a school shooting on social media. As reported by the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office, Anderson had made a post that showed him with a rifle, handgun, and a tactical-style vest. He'd captioned it, "Hey Siri, directions to the nearest school." He was subsequently arrested and charged with making a written or electronic threat to conduct a mass shooting. In a statement released to the media, Sheriff Chad Chronister highlighted the seriousness of the man's actions, describing the post as a sick joke which had instilled fear into his community. The arrest came just days after a school shooting in Uvalde, Texas, carried out by 18-year-old Salvador Ramos, which had resulted in the death of 22 people, including the perpetrator. Number 5. Patrick Sharp. On May the 27th of 2022, English teenager Kejitan Migdal was returning home after attending his high school year 13 prom. 18-year-old Migdal was walking to his car through Cutty's Lane in the town of Stevenage when he encountered Patrick Sharp, also aged 18. They got into a physical altercation reportedly sparked by Sharp's attempt to rob Migdal of his car keys. The latter was knifed and later found in Cutty's Lane in critical condition. He was taken to Lister Hospital, where he succumbed to his injuries in the early hours of the following day. Aside from doing well academically, Migdal was part of the dance troupe Prospects Fraternity, who'd made an impression on the BBC's The Greatest Dancer in 2019. Sharp was arrested a short time after the killing and charged with the murder, possession of an offensive weapon and possession of Class A drugs. In early June, he appeared at Luton Crown Court via video link and wasn't asked to make a plea, while a provisional trial date was set for late November. Number 4. Eric Rohan Justin. For several months in 2020, Maryland teenager Eric Rohan Justin repeatedly messaged TikTok star Ava Majuri, vying for her attention on multiple social media platforms. 18-year-old Justin had allegedly bought Majuri's phone number and pictures of her that weren't online from the underage teenager's former classmates. Majuri, based out of Naples, Florida, talked to her parents and with their permission, decided to contact Justin directly. She sold him 2 selfies of only her face, for which Justin sent her $300 through Venmo. He then asked for more explicit photos, at which point Majuri's father, Rob, intervened. The man reminded Justin that she was underage and told him to stop contacting her. Even though he was blocked, Justin continued sending Majuri money, totaling roughly $600, pleading with her to unblock him. When she continued ignoring his requests, he started plotting to murder her. Justin allegedly got her information from one of her classmates and traveled to Naples. On July the 10th of 2020, he barged onto the Majuri family's property and pumped a shotgun shell through the front door of their home. Looking back on the gunshot, Majuri would later recount, "I felt it in my chest, and I looked up and there was a hole in my door from the fragments." Rob, a retired police lieutenant, sprung out of bed and noticed the teenager on their front lawn. He chased him but tripped and fell, which gave Justin enough time to flee. After Majuri's mother had called 911, Rob grabbed his handgun and stood watch while waiting for the officer's arrival. In the meantime, however, Justin returned. Rob pointed his weapon at the 18-year-old and ordered him to drop the shotgun, which he reportedly refused to do. Instead, aiming it at him, Rob then opened fire, killing Justin, who was later found to be in possession of 2 cell phones, both of which contained thousands of pictures of Majuri. Rob wasn't charged in connection to the shooting, as it was deemed his actions had been in line with Florida's Stand Your Ground law. Number 3. Joshua Vining. Florida police officers were called to a home in Bellevue, about 70 miles northeast of Orlando. In April of 2022, law enforcement found that Christopher Leroy Broad Jr., who was in his late teens, had sustained a critical gunshot wound. He was rushed to a local hospital where he later passed away, and investigators learned that the incident had been the result of a dangerous game involving a handgun and a bulletproof vest. Teenagers Colton Whitler and Joshua Vining were arrested in connection to the shooting, as reported by 18-year-old Evan Vowell, who took a video of the stunt that was seized by law enforcement. Vining had brought out the vest and firearm, allegedly proposing they open fire on each other. Broad shot Vining first, and after the vest caught the bullet, they switched places. As reported by the police, the video showed Broad giving Vining a nod after being hit with a bullet. The latter proceeded to shoot him 4 more times, with some of the bullets piercing the vest. The clip contradicted Whitler's initial statements, as he'd allegedly told officers, "My house just got shot up. My friend got shot in the chest." He was charged with providing false information to law enforcement, while Vining was charged with manslaughter. They were subsequently released on a $1,000 and $30,000 bond, respectively. Within weeks, however, both were arrested again in connection to a drive-by shooting that had targeted a house in Ocala. They were stopped in a Mercedes driven by 19-year-old Jarrett Vining Jr., along with another unnamed teenager as a passenger. All 4 of them were extremely nervous and sweaty, based on the reports of arresting officers. A rifle was found between the driver's legs, while an additional 3 pistols were recovered from the vehicle, one of which had been hidden inside a pizza box. The rounds shot at the house had been of such high velocity that they cut through it and stopped in a backyard metal structure. Fortunately, the home had been empty at the time. Number 2. Mei Ling Smith. Shortly before noon, on May the 24th of 2021, Officer Nathan Jones from Indiana's Evansville Police Department was flagged down by a man in the Diamond Avenue area. He told the officer that he'd just been involved in a domestic dispute. and that he wanted to leave the neighborhood before Mei Ling Smith, the woman with whom he'd been arguing, returned. While Jones and the unnamed man were speaking, 18-year-old Smith drove up in a Honda Accord and started yelling at the latter. She ignored Jones's request to remain in her vehicle and continued behaving belligerently. When the police officer attempted to place her in handcuffs, she got back in the Honda. Smith then put the vehicle in reverse and began driving away while Jones was still holding on to her. The officer was dragged for about a block before he managed to stumble free, at which point Smith ran over his arm with her car. Backup officers made their way to the scene and Jones was taken to a local hospital, but the extent of the damage to his arm remained unclear. Smith was booked into Vanderburg County Jail on charges of resisting law enforcement and battery against a public safety official. Number 1. Stephen Jones. On October the 8th of 2015, multiple Northern Arizona University students were shot, one of them fatally, by freshman Stephen Jones. In a parking lot near Mountain View Hall on the Flagstaff Mountain campus, Jones and two fellow pledges of the Sigma Chi fraternity were allegedly set upon by Colin Bruff, Nick Pyring, Nick Prato, and Kyle Zintek. The four, all aged 20 and intoxicated at the time, were reported as members of the Delta Chi fraternity. The events that followed were described through conflicting accounts from over 40 witnesses, which made it difficult to determine whether or not Jones had acted in self-defense. He and his legal team claimed that after being sucker punched, he was chased to his car where he kept a Glock 22 handgun. Fearing for his life, he then fired the weapon at Bruff and Pyron as they were about to tackle him, and then shot the others after being taken to the ground. The bullet trajectory indicated that Bruff was within 2 feet of the Glock's muzzle and leaning forward as if lunging when he was shot. The prosecution would argue that Jones wasn't in further danger after the initial sucker punch and that he'd retrieved the weapon before returning to the fracas with premeditation. Bruff died from his injuries. Pyring was shot in the right arm and hip, while a bullet struck Prato through the neck, leaving him needing surgery for nerve damage. Zintek was shot twice in the back and lost a kidney as a result, in addition to suffering a punctured lung and a severely damaged liver. The jury was unable to reach a verdict during Jones's first trial, and a mistrial was declared on May the 2nd of 2017. 1 month before the scheduled retrial on January the 9th of 2020, Jones pleaded guilty to 1 count of manslaughter and 3 counts of aggravated assault. He was sentenced to 6 years in prison. Thanks for watching. Would you rather go through middle school all over again or show up to a reunion naked? Let us know in the comments section below.